It's been such an action-packed series that it feels like we're in the semi-finals of a Wildlife World Cup.
Yes, we've had some slippery slips, some unfortunate trips, but some jolly fine catches too.
So beaks, feathers and claws crossed that we make it through tonight and proceed straight through to tomorrow's final.
It's not going to penalties. We're going to put the vole in the back of the net. Welcome to Springwatch. Yes, hello and welcome to Springwatch 2018. It's the penultimate programme coming to you from the National Trust Sherborne Park Estate here in Gloucestershire. We're live tonight for 60 minutes. We've been on for the last couple of weeks. We've had some real highlights, I've got to say. But before we kick off tonight, who do you think's going to win then?
Poland? Are they in it?
Poland, are they in it?
I think they
That's
are.
what I have to work with. Poland, are they in it? I didn't mean the World Cup, Football World Cup. I meant, you know, the little owls versus the blackbirds, of course.
Unfortunately, I think it's going to be an unpopular winner there. I think it's going to be the little owl.
Well, you say that, but it's gone to extra time. We saw this just before the start of the programme. The little owl is out and about and as sharp as ever. This is the female outside the nest hole, but just across to the other side of that barnyard is this. The young chick being provisioned by the female blackbird.
Yes!
Yes! Got through last night, it's got through today, it's still going at the moment. The thing is, when it gets to injury time later, will it be severe injury time? And will the little owl be the victor?
Do you know, I love supporting the underdog, so I'm going to really support that blackbird. That's why I'm supporting Poland, bit of an underdog.
Poland, are they in it?
It may be the penultimate show, but we're keeping our eye on the ball. And you know what? I think we're going to go all the way. I think we're going to go through to victory. I mean, we've sold a few players, we've transferred a few.
You can't sell and transfer players in the World Cup. You play because you're a member of that nation.
No, this is my Fantasy Wildlife World Cup. And look who we've still got on our team. We've got the lovely Lucy Cook and we've got Patrick Eyes. So, Lucy, are you going to score for us tonight?
Well, you know, I did go a bit batty last night, Michaela.
Bit David Batty.
No, not David Batty, just Batty. And later in the show, we'll have an update on my nocturnal movements.
And what about you, Patrick? Are you going to get one in the back of the net for us?
Yeah, of course. I've got a new study I want to tell you all about. I've been out and about in Bristol, tracking one of our most mesmerising birds.
Would that be Raheem Starling by any chance?
Very good. You're very good, aren't you? Anyway, enough of the football jokes, I think. Let's have a look at some of our birds that are still with us that we didn't transfer. Oh, no, I did it again. Let's have a look, first of all, at the great tits live. So this is where they are. Do you know, I love it when at the end of the series, we have such a pretty nest, and we've got a couple of pretty nests still, haven't we? There they are, sitting in there. They're 16 to 17 days old, and there are 5 chicks, looking very cosy. In fact, they've got a lot of feathers on there. They're almost looking ready to go. But if you remember, we had one that was a little bit of a runty that we called Plucky. Let's see if we can see Plucky. Well, at the moment, you can't see him. But do not despair, he's not called Plucky for nothing. Little Lucky Plucky is being sat on by his sibling, and although he looks a little bit squashed there, I'm pleased to tell you that actually he's doing okay. Obviously, you don't know if it's a he or she. Getting fed by the parent, and look, there we go. What goes in one end, whoa, comes out the other.
Nice.
But what's great about that
It's white.
is it's white. And the other day when we saw it, it was a little bit sort of green and not terribly well looking. But you know what? I'm going to stick my neck out here because I think they're going to go tomorrow evening, especially for our final show.
Really?
5 to 9. Yeah, they'll
Those
be
tits
out.
will be out by the end of the series.
They will. They certainly will.
We've given you yellow wagtails, we've given you goshawks, we've given you long-eared owls, all at the nest, but we're also giving you chaffinch. Let's go live to it now. Here is the nest, and you can see the chicks there just above the surface of the cup. You look very carefully. That one's having a little bit of a preen. They've got these still tufty, downy crests at the moment, but there, look, they're a wing stretch, and you can see the white wing bars already coming through, which are so characteristic of this species. Hold on, there's a little bit of begging there. Is that the female coming? I don't think so. But we have been watching this female provisioning the nest in the hedge here. Now, typically females feed for the first few days and then the males help out, but we've seen nothing of the male. And we've also noticed that she's got this growth on her leg. And this is caused by the Fringilla papilloma virus. It causes these swellings. You may have seen chaffinches on your patio with these on their feet or legs. Very good when she comes in. She feeds all the chicks in turn, make sure they all get a share. Share of a feather not being such a good idea. She manages to dislodge. Some birds do feed feathers to their young, I've got to say. Grebes do it, it helps with their digestion. Not applicable for chaffinches. Unusually, there were 5 chicks in this nest when everyone went to bed last night. And when we woke up this morning, there were only 4. We don't know what happened to the other chick. Looked perfectly healthy. I don't think it would have fallen out. They're still nestled quite nicely in the cup there. It's unlikely it was predated. There's no sign of any damage. The other chicks are fine. Maybe it just died.
Maybe it choked on the feather.
No, I don't think so. But it's frustrating, isn't it, when we've got the camera there and then something disappears like that. We don't know what happens.
Very curious. Well, let's take a look at the reed bunting nest now, live. That's the field where the reed bunting nest is. And let's take a look at the nest itself. And look, shock horror, there's just 1 chick left. So let's find out what's been going on. It's actually been 24 hours of chaos in the house of reed bunting, because this is last Thursday, and there are actually, as you can see, 4 chicks in that nest. But look how dilapidated it is. It's like the leaning nest of Pisa. And look, the chicks, as of yesterday, they're too big. They just can't stay in that leaning nest. And that one is looking like it's falling out. And in fact, it is falling out. It has fallen out and can't get back in again, and actually falls out completely and is out of the nest. And the mother comes back, and you can see it looks like she's looking around for that chick. She can't see it anywhere, and then she disappears from view and reappears with, yes, a fecal sac. So that must be from the chick. We presume that that's okay. That chick has semi-fledged. And then what happened today was that we had another chick fledged. So there's a sort of semi-fledged situation going on, and now there's just 1. So will that chick be left there by the end of the show, I wonder?
You know what though, Lucy, it's not very high, is it, that nest?
No.
I mean, it's quite low, so even if they do fall out, they'll be all right. You just wonder whether it's a bit early for them.
Well, we saw the yellowhammers do it. We saw the
that's true.
skylarks do it. They're both ground nesting birds. And we also saw what happens if they stay in the nest with our first, yellowhammer's nest, which the weasel got all of them in one go. So if they are capable of scrambling out of the nest and spacing themselves out a little bit, if they are attacked by a ground predator like that, then there's a greater chance that some of them survive. Hence the importance of semi-fledging.
Well, from your leaning nest of Pisa to one of the most picturesque nests here in Sherborne, let's go over to our robin cam live. Now look at that, that looks like a fairy glen. How stunning is that? Let's take a look inside. We've got 5 chicks there all huddled together, 6 days old, waiting for mum and dad to come back and provide them with some tasty morsels. Okay, let's take a look at one of our other nests, the black caps. If we go live to that camera, we've got, okay, so we can see that she's got a brown cap, so that's the female sat on those chicks. 4 chicks, only 4 days old, our youngest chicks here in Sherborne on Springwatch. I mean, that is just fantastic.
It's a lovely nest, that, isn't it? And I'm going to stick my neck out here. I'm going to put £100 on this table to say they are not going to fledge by the end of the series.
That's because they take about 12 days to fledge, so that's cheating.
Yeah, a real gambler. Michaela Strachan sticking her neck out yet again. Honestly, someone will lop it off one day. However, let's go from 2 of the cosiest nests in the country, those 2 small passerines, to Britain's largest duck, which nests on the coast and really has to run the gauntlet to breed successfully.
Spring is a busy time on the Isle of May. The towering cliffs and surrounding seas are crammed full of seabirds. Gulls dominate the skies as puffins perch in colourful splendour. The breeding season is in full swing. Just off the coast, a female eider rests, bobbing beyond the breaking waves. Eiders are true sea ducks, They spend most of their time riding the swell or diving for mollusks. But our female has something else on her mind. It's time for her to find a mate, and the mostly monochromatic males are out in force. They surround the female, bobbing their heads and raising their large bodies out of the water in an attempt to impress her. At almost 3 kilograms, eiders are the UK's heaviest duck, so these are energetic displays. But despite being surrounded, she's got her eye on another. Stepping up, he wastes no time in showing off his dapper plumage. Clearly impressed, she leads her suitor to the shore. He'll remain by her side as an escort until she's found a place to nest. But on this busy island, a good nesting spot is quite hard to find. And the neighbours, well, they're far from friendly. Let's face it, a lesser black-backed gull wouldn't make an ideal babysitter. Best to move on. Finally, they find the perfect spot. The male's duty is done for now, so he returns to the sanctuary of the sea, leaving the female to a long, lonely vigil. The female will lay her eggs over the course of a few days, and she won't fully incubate them until she's laid them all. It's a risky strategy, especially when there are gulls around. A neighbouring nest is raided, and the shells lay strewn around the site. Her clutch complete, our female settles down to incubate her eggs. She won't move for the next month, not even to eat. It's simply too dangerous to leave those eggs. For some, it's the ultimate sacrifice. But our female is strong, and finally her ducklings begin to hatch, one by one. But for this young family, the hard part is just beginning. Soon, they'll have to run the gauntlet back to the sea once more.
It's a very handsome duck, isn't it? The male.
Very handsome.
Eider male ducks.
I love those male ducks.
Yeah.
Sleek, beautiful, almost monochrome with those lovely green wedges on their head.
It's your kind of duck, that, isn't it?
My kind of duck. Dapper.
But I tell you what, those new ducklings, newly hatched ducklings, are very vulnerable, and we'll be catching up with that family later on today in the programme. But, you know, they're very much a sea duck. You hardly ever see them away from the coast, and that's because they rely on coastal molluscs like mussels. But when you look at them eating one, you think, how on earth do they digest that shell? Well, obviously, birds don't have teeth, but what they do have is a gizzard. And the gizzard is between their crop and their intestine, and it's filled with something called gastroliths or stones. And if it's a duck like an eider duck, then it will have a thick muscular wall here that will break down that shell. If it's a bird that eats something that's easy to digest, like fruit or nectar or soft-bellied insects, then that gizzard will be much smaller and the muscular wall will be much thinner. It's a good diagram, that. I like that.
It is.
Yeah.
Like a bit of detail. What about this, though? Our ever-resourceful researchers have come up with a model which allows us to demonstrate the working properties of an eider's gizzard.
Love it.
As you say. Look, it's even got a functional mandible here like that. So look, you have this one.
Okay, I've got it.
I've got this one here. So here we have the mouth where they swallow their food. This represents the esophagus here, the tube here, and this red ball at the bottom here represents the gizzard. So the first thing we need to do is to get some gastroliths into our gizzard.
Okay.
So if we get some stones and swallow them there, that's lovely. Thank you.
Lucky
And,
stones, yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, just a little stone in there. Okay, and then to represent the muscle, we don't really want to put a piece of sea shellfish down in there. It's going to be squidgy and horrible. We've got these here, which are basically pistachios, hard on the outside, soft on the inside, just like a mussel. So if we stick the pistachio, not that one, it's going to choke them. It's going to. Oh my goodness, we need a small one here. Hold on. What do you
Oh, mine are going down. Oh no, look. Oh gosh. You did a Heineken maneuver.
Well, I've got one.
Look,
One's-
it's got stuck.
One's down. So
it's
then what would
sweet.
happen is the muscular contractions on the outside of this gizzard, this part of the stomach, would then grind the stones and the muscle.
I'm not strong enough to grind, so I've got a tool.
I've seen you grinding plenty of times and you've been perfectly adequate. There you go. Look. So basically, the muscles then grind this away because, as Michaela said, they don't have teeth to chew. Birds can't have teeth. They'd be too heavy in the skull. They don't want to fly around with those. And also, they couldn't develop teeth whilst they were still in the egg, and they need to be functional as soon as they get out. So then what we were able to do on this occasion is remove the gizzard here. Oh, no, look, I didn't even get in the gizzard.
Look, mine's got one star.
Oh, well, hold on. But fortunately, previously, this eider did actually.
it's
yes,
worked.
look.
Little bits.
There we are.
Yes.
It had previously consumed some pistachio mussels.
Yeah, yours hasn't got very much in it, has it? Mine was obviously a lot hungrier
Look
than
at
yours.
that.
But
Pretty
no, it's-
fantastic.
yeah,
Pretty
I think that's
fantastic.
worked
So
quite
this
well.
artificial gizzard is absolutely perfect. And if any of our viewers out there are having trouble with their gizzards, you'll probably be able to get one of these on the National Health pretty soon, actually. And that's probably all you're going to get on the National Health, actually, if you've got trouble with your gizzard.
Well, from digestion to dendrology. Do you know what that means?
Dendrology, yes. Dendrology is the study of trees.
Very good, you get 10 out of 10. Neil Strawson visits a tree that is one of our oldest in the country. Not only that, but it's been a tourist attraction for over 100 years.
I've studied woodland all over the world and know the importance for wildlife.
And in the UK, fragments of ancient woodlands like this one provide some of our most crucial habitats.
And today I find myself in Sherwood Forest, home to the legendary Robin Hood, where one tree attracts 500,000 visitors every year. And this tree has become somewhat of an icon.
Major oak is the jewel in Sherwood's crown. Believed to be 1100 years old, it's said its hollow trunk and wide branches provided hiding places for Robin Hood and his merry men. But today it has a problem. And I'm meeting RSPB ecologist Andy Skinner to find out why this mighty oak may be facing an uncertain future.
So Andy, here we are at the famous Major Oak. Tell me a bit about why the tree is important other than its sort of age and historical sort of fame.
So there are about 1,800 species in the UK that are decaying wood invertebrates, uniquely found on these decaying wood habitats. And they're some of our most scarce and threatened species. These are species that live on decaying parts of the tree, which is all a natural process. And it takes a long time. So this hollowing process that's happened in the Major Oak here has probably taken a minimum of 300 or 400 years. There aren't many big old trees left in the UK.
So Andy, we can see the sort of props. This tree is on struts and looks like it's supported. Is the tree healthy?
So over the last few years, it's been noticed that the leaves of the Major Oak are quite yellow in the height of the summer. We know there's an issue.
So what kind of factors affect the health of an ancient tree like this?
Probably the biggest factor we've had to deal with is compaction. In the Victorian period particularly, it was a big tourist attraction and people used to come along here. They used to walk up to it, hide inside it. This number of visitors has just caused the ground around the roots to be compacted. And we know that compaction around tree roots is incredibly bad. What it does is it reduces the ability of those roots to breathe. It blocks the air spaces. It reduces the flow of nutrients into roots.
Around 90% of tree roots are found in the top 60 centimetres of the soil, where there is a rich supply of water, oxygen and nutrients. Years of compaction can prevent a tree absorbing these key resources, and that causes the roots to die, ultimately leading to the death of the tree. So, is there hope for the major oak? Andy has called in arboriculturalist Sharon Hosgood and her team to map the health of the roots using a high-tech buggy. It sends radio signals into the soil, which bounce off the water contained in the roots and can then be picked up by radar. This will allow us to see the entire root system of major oak, and after a few hours we have all the data we need.
So we've been round and round and round and round in circles. I hear the results are in.
As we thought, the top 25 centimetres, there's no roots at all.
Right, OK.
And that's because of that compacted ground. Roots simply can't grow through compacted soil.
As Andy feared, the years of being a tourist attraction have taken its toll. The roots that remain are much deeper, where they get less access to water, oxygen and nutrients. So this could be what's causing the leaves to turn yellow.
So what's this here?
The roots go down to 2.5 metres, and this image here is just within the fenced area. Do you know how far the roots go out to?
No, go on, tell me.
They go out to 40 metres.
40 metres?
Right where we are now.
Incredibly, major oak has adapted and spread its roots out to reach less compacted earth. These roots are very close to the surface and in the best position to absorb everything the tree needs.
So Andy, you're custodian of this mighty tree. What's next?
This 3D model is really interesting because it's telling us now that the root system's a lot healthier than we thought. But we've still got this issue of the compaction. We need to think very carefully about what the next steps are to kind of improve that soil environment for the roots.
Despite its incredible age, it looks hopeful that with the right care and attention from Andy and the team, major oak could be inspiring awe and wonder and supporting some of our most endangered species for centuries to come.
I love the mix of that new technology, you know, that remarkable technology, mapping all of those roots so beautifully, and the way that that's being used to protect something as ancient as that tree.
It's a fabulous tree.
It is, and old trees, there's a great sense of romance, I think, with old trees. I've got one in the woods near me, I go and sit underneath, it puts me in my place, you know.
Does it? Yeah, I bet it's quite contemplative, isn't it?
Not in a sort of a yoga sense, and that's the sort of thing, but it's more that, you know, we think everything that's going on is important, and we're important, this time's important. That tree, the one I sit under, is about 650 years old, and I sit under it, and I feel small, and I think that's a good thing. It's not about us, we mustn't be arrogant as humans, it's about trees that are 650 years old. And that major oak, actually, which is somewhere between 800 and 1,000 years old, is not that old. Look at this one. This is the Fortingall yew, and some people think this is between 2,000 and 3,000 years old. Others think it could be between 5,000 and 9,000 years old. 9,000 years old.
That's quite mind-blowing, isn't it?
That would make it the oldest, that's obviously the oldest organism living in the UK, and they think there's a tree in Sweden which is 9,500 years old, but you don't want to believe the Swedes. They gave us ABBA and Volvos, you know, you'll be careful with that sort of thing. And the other thing is that, interestingly, is say it's 3,000 years old. In 2015, it decided to change sex. It had always been male, producing pollen in the springtime, and then they found some red berries on it, so part of that tree, after 3,000 years old, has got bored with being a male, and it's changed its sex.
Is that right?
It's never too late. And there are times when I think, over to you.
What an amazing tree. That's an amazing
Incredible.
story. It must have seen such a lot of history. There are some fabulous trees here in Sherborne. I mean, so many stunning old trees, about 459 in fact. They're all vital for wildlife. And as Steve Baxwell found out on week one when he spent the night at the top of a tree, an old oak tree, they could be really busy places at night time, particularly for bats. Bats use them as a source of food. They rest up in them, and they sort of use it as a meeting point as well. And here on Sherborne they have 13 different species. The one that we've got a camera on a maternity roost is the lesser horseshoeback. Let's have a look at that maternity roost live. Gosh, it's quite interesting, isn't it? There's not that many bats in there right now. Just a
Yeah.
few bats fidgeting away. They're probably on the other side of that roost where our camera can't see them at the moment, because we do know, if we look at the pictures, that there are about 300 bats in that roost, and at least half to 2/3 of them are pregnant. And we were really hoping for a live birth, and we were hoping to see baby bats. But they kind of give birth in June, July, but it's thought that temperature triggers when females implant their embryos. So as we had a late spring, they probably implanted those embryos late, which means the births will probably be July. They're unlikely now to be in June. So
It's a shame.
unfortunately, we're not going to see a baby
I can see the
bat.
birth, but we've had some great views of those bats. Now, it's interesting, they actually spend the winter in caves. We saw them in the winter when they were mating in the cave, but in the summer, they move to these maternity roosts because they're so much warmer. These bats want to be warm so that they can conserve energy and put it all into the growth of the developing embryo inside them. So Lily Moffat, one of the zoologists on the team, and myself were really keen to get a thermometer into the roost so we could monitor the bat's behaviour relative to the temperature. And this is what we saw. This is fascinating stuff, I have to tell you. So here's a speeded up picture of the bats when the temperature's between 18 and 19 degrees centigrade. And there, look, you can see they're clumped together. And if you look carefully on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see them moving around, so they spend time in the centre of the cluster, sometime on the edge. Lots of clustering. Look, when it warms up, 22 to 23 degrees centigrade, a lot less clustering, a lot less activity. The bats have spread themselves out. It's warm enough for them not to worry about having to keep that body temperature up. And sometimes in the apex of these roofs, the temperature can get up to about 40 degrees, 45 degrees, really, really hot indeed. And on those occasions, again, we see the bats moving around. So what governs their movement during the course of the day, what makes them so fidgety, is the temperature. So, Lily, top work, absolutely top work.
It's fascinating. It's the most interesting thing you've said all day, actually. No, it's good.
What do you mean?
It's a good study. It's a very interesting study.
Oh, give me that.
What are you
It's
doing?
another purpose for it.
Let's join Lucy. She's in the village to find out more about the maternity roost.
Well, I've absolutely loved being able to spy on the maternal roost during the day, but what happens when the show is over and the bats become more active? Well, lesser horseshoe bats in the summer months will emerge from the roost around 30 minutes after sunset. So last night I headed out with bat expert Paul Howden Leach and some fancy new bat detecting kit to try and eavesdrop on their nighttime meanderings. Wow. Some of them seem to be coming and going back in again.
Okay, this is called light sampling. So what they're doing, they're coming out and they're testing basically to see if it's dark enough to go out foraging. So when they're going back in, they go, nah, it's not dark enough yet. So
Not dark enough for us bats.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though they're pregnant, they'll still go out foraging.
Yeah, even though they're pregnant, they need to sort of feed up a bit, really. So keep those energy levels up. So that's why they're all disappearing off out at the moment.
Yeah.
That light sampling behaviour really is fascinating, but if you think about it, the timing of the bat's emergence from the roost has got to be a finely tuned affair, because obviously darkness is going to protect the bats from predation, which normally happens from owls or domestic cats. But then dusk is the time when insects are most plentiful, so that's going to be the best time for foraging. And of course, on these short summer nights that we're having right now, any delay in emerging from the roost is going to increase the risk that bats aren't going to find enough food, which for our heavily pregnant lesser horseshoe bats is going to be critical. So when they leave the roost, where do they go? Well, Paul and I did our best to try and keep up with them.
There's a river down there, and hopefully we should get some bats on the top of the river.
Do bats follow rivers, roads, hedgerows, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, they use them as commuting routes. They're kind of the motorways for bats, I suppose, really. So hedgerows, edges of woodlands, rivers, all the sort of linear features, they'll go and happily bomb along.
I think we just saw one. Did you get one just now?
Yeah, I think it may have been a Dor Benton's bat that's kind of feeding on the river down here at the bottom.
No sign of the lesser horseshoes, though.
No, they've vanished.
We have lost the trail.
Yeah, we could perhaps go up this hedgerow along here and see what we find.
Yeah, okay, let's do
Sounds
that.
good. Oh,
Yeah?
Yeah, it's just gone past. There you go. It's appeared in the list.
Oh, yes, lesser horseshoe. So we've tracked them down.
So they're going up and down this hedgerow by those things. So we have caught up with them at long last.
You reckon there'll be more up at that tree?
Yeah.
This tree's a bit of a hot spot, isn't it? How many species do we think are in this tree at the moment?
I think we've got noctule and maybe lizards or serotine flying around kind of at the top. We've had horseshoe flying along the bottom. Up to now, we've had about 7 species tonight, including barbicel, which is a good one.
Yeah, they're all good.
They're all good, of course.
Well, in the end, we actually managed to get 9 species, which is pretty good going for such a short transect. We only got 1 lesser horseshoe, but then they can reach speeds of up to 20 miles per hour. So it was always going to be a bit of a struggle to keep up with them. Now, our cameraman, Mark Yates, did manage to get some thermal imaging of hunting bats, and we think some of these could be lesser horseshoes in the woodland there. They are versatile hunters. Sometimes they'll catch flying insects on the wing, like this there. That looks like, here we go, catching insects as they're flying. But other times they will just pluck spiders and other invertebrates directly from branches and vegetation. They seem to prefer woodland habitat above all the others in Sherborne, as it provides them with plenty of edges to follow, plenty of food and plenty of cover. Now, Gillian is in Glasgow now, checking out an animal that has the locals rather perplexed.
I've come to Glasgow's East End, where in 2008, one of the locals thought they'd seen a rat. But upon closer investigation, those reports led to the discovery of Glasgow's first grassland water vole population. Water vole ambassador Robin Stewart has been trying to get to the bottom of what's been going on.
So Robin, I guess the million-dollar question is, if there is no water around you, how did they get here in the first place?
I wish I could answer that properly. One theory that's been put forward is that you've got the M8 corridor that runs along here. At one point, that was the Monkland Canal, and it's perhaps that the relic populations along the canal were pushed out when the works were getting done, and they've moved into the grassland just adjacent to it.
It must have been a huge surprise to you to find them here.
Absolutely mind-boggling. It goes against everything that you think you know about water voles. They're supposed to be like very specialised and living in wetland habitats, but you can see the grassland is completely different.
And these water voles aren't just surviving here, they're thriving. In their traditional wetland habitats, you may find between 8 and 15 individuals on a 1-kilometre stretch of riverbank. Here, this one small patch of grassland is thought to be home to more than 100 voles, with their underground burrows exceeding 100 metres in length.
What is it about this habitat that makes them do so well over here?
There's 2 main factors. So the soil, first and foremost, must be diggable, so not too wet, not too clay-based, and for them to build their burrow system in the first place. They will also have really high-quality grasses to feed on, which are all quite fast-growing, but they provide them with all the nutrition that they need.
And since smelling that first rat, the locals have taken the voles to heart, and volunteers work tirelessly to create and maintain these grassland habitats, benefiting both the voles and biodiversity. And all the signs point to a great success story.
So these are exactly the same signs that you'd expect to see around a wetland water vole habitat, but right here in a grassland.
Yeah, absolutely. So they still have the burrows, the feeding remains, latrines, droppings. The only real difference in field signs is probably you see a lot more of the vole hills.
That's what I find really exciting about this, though, because these signs could be easily overlooked, and there could be grassland water vole populations all around the country, but we've just not seen them yet, not known where to look or what to look for.
Absolutely, and I think it's really great that we're rethinking water voles and the kind of habitat that we find them in.
And I guess, I mean, you can see this tiny patch of land is hemmed in by development all around. I mean, is that a big issue as well?
Development is a big issue. The main thing is sort of balancing the needs for regeneration along with the needs for wildlife.
A prime example of this balance in action can be seen in Cranhill, where water voles are thriving in a park that is actively undergoing regeneration. And with the highest density of voles in the city, it's the perfect place to see them.
I can absolutely see why people think these are rats, but actually, when you take a closer look, they are really different. What would you say the real distinct differences are?
So they're very similar in shape and size and weight, but the muzzle of a water vole is sort of far flatter. Rats have very pointed noses. The same with rats' ears are big and round, whereas a water voles tend to lie flat against their heads.
So what's going to happen to this population here with all the regeneration work?
So the plan is to actually keep the population here, but just move them around the park slightly. Obviously, we're really proud to have water voles in amongst our cities and our parks. And the main aim is to sort of have regeneration and water voles living alongside each other.
So although water vole populations are declining in their traditional habitats, the discovery of these grassland populations is great news for the species. And better still, Glasgow's population is now recognised as nationally significant, and that could be crucial for the future of water voles across the UK.
Unusual, those voles living out in the field like that, under the ground. We call them fossorial when they're living in that fashion, a bit like moles, subterranean, as opposed to riverine when you normally find them along watercourses. And of course in the UK we're used to seeing them, well we were used to seeing them when there were enough of them around to see, along the watercourses, whereas in Europe quite a lot of them are fossorial. And the other thing you may have noticed there, if you're old enough to remember seeing water voles, given that they've disappeared so rapidly, is that some of them were black. Not the brown ones that you see on the right-hand side. And this is because typically the ones we find in England and Wales are brown, but in Glasgow, that population that Gillian was looking at, 75% of them were black. And in fact, by the time you get to the uplands, the highland regions, all of them are black. It's not to do with their food, it's a genetical thing, and it's related to the fact that they arose in Iberia, Spain and Portugal, and how they got to Scotland is quite complicated. It's all to do with ice ages and water levels going up and down in the North Sea and English Channel.
It's really, really interesting, isn't it? But as Lucy was saying yesterday, that water voles in Britain have generally declined dramatically. But what about the rest of our British mammals? We have 58 terrestrial mammals. Doesn't sound very many, does it? And surprisingly, there's not that much data on some of them. So for the last 20 years, the British Mammal Society have been doing a study and their results came out today. And I've got to say, it makes for sobering reading. It's really quite shocking, some of the results that they've come out with. And they reckon that at least 1 in 5 of our British mammals is in serious threat of extinction. So we've now got a red list. We know which ones are doing okay, which ones need help, and which ones really are critical.
Yeah, in fact, here I've got a bar chart somewhere behind me here, and this shows you each of those categories here. So we're looking at the mammal species that we have, and this includes non-native and native species. Least concern, well, there were about 29 of those species, and you may look at this and think, well, most of them are okay then, but we've got to worry about these here. The near threatened, the vulnerable, the endangered, and the critically endangered here, which number 3 animals. So, okay, what falls into each category? Well, at least concern, we can start with red deer. So they seem to have increased by about 24%. Why have they increased? No natural predators, lack of wolves basically, so they can run rampant across the highlands as they are. What about in near threatened? Well, strangely the rabbit, an animal which once occurred here in the millions, if not hundreds of millions, down perhaps by -46%, principally recently due to rabbit hemorrhagic disease virus. And then what about vulnerable? Vulnerable, serotine bat, we can go for this one amongst those listed as vulnerable. Why is this one declining? Lack of insects in the environment. We know that significant studies published recently in France and Germany say that we've lost up to 75% of the insects in this environment. Bats, insectivores, bound to be going down. Okay, then we move on to the last couple of them. We've got red squirrel. Red squirrel fits into the endangered category. Habitat loss, the introduction of the grey squirrel from North America, complete with its powerpox virus. And then finally, critically endangered, we've got Scottish wildcat. Historically down to persecution, they hung on in Scotland when they could actually occur all across the UK. And now, of course, what they face is a genetical extinction as they're hybridising with feral cats, domestic cats that have gone wild. So when you think about it, yes, OK, quite a lot of these animals here are in least concerned. A significant number of those are non-native, not native British mammals, and these ones we really do have to start looking after.
But I think some of these ones as well, I mean, they're in reintroduction programmes, and they've come from a very dire place anyway, so the numbers were so low, so it might seem like they've increased, but actually we still haven't got a lot of them. I mean, basically, I think we've got to look after all of those mammals.
We have indeed, and I've got to tell you, you know, the percentages that I was just giving you, they're pretty rough. They're not 100% reliable. When it comes to monitoring our butterfly and bird populations in the UK, I would dare to suggest that we probably have the most accurate figures anywhere in the world. But when it comes to our mammals, that hasn't been the case.
So the British Mammal Society want more information, and they want citizen science, basically. So they've come out with this app, and it's a mammal mapper, and they want as many people as possible to download this app. There's loads of information on it, loads of things to ID different mammals, and they want to know where you've seen mammals and what you've seen. So download the app. Next time you walk your dog, or you go for a walk with the kids, or even a bike ride, then take that with you, take your phone with you, and try and see as many mammals as possible and give them the information. We can only help mammals if we have enough information.
Quite right. Details, of course, available on our website. We do want you to get in touch. This is how you do it.
The easiest way to reach us is to go online and be our friend on social media. You can like us on Facebook, adding your pictures and comments to our page. Follow us on Instagram and tag us into your photographs, or tweet us your questions at BBC Springwatch. And don't forget, you can watch the live cameras day and night at bbc.co.uk/Springwatch.
Now, one of the best ways to understand any issues a species may be facing is to watch them, observe them, and collect as much data as you can. Take our starlings, for example, a bird that many of us will be familiar with, not only because they live in rural areas, but because they also live in our towns and cities. Most famous for their dazzling murmurations, individually, they're actually quite beautiful birds. In this image here, we can see, look at that leading edge of the wing, almost browny, orangey on that lining, speckled, absolutely beautiful. Now, those feathers, the darker feathers are indeed black, but they will often iridesce, and that's due to the structure of the feathers, which often give a kind of purpley, greeny tinge. Absolutely fantastic. Now, these murmurations, what they actually do, they can also mimic other birds. They have a wide range of vocalizations, but they can also mimic car alarms. Isn't that extraordinary? But here in the UK, our starlings are on the decline, down 81% since 1970. 50 years on, we're still none the wiser as to why their numbers are declining. Fortunately, they're relatively easy to monitor, and the evidence suggests that they're breeding well, they're fledging successfully, so whatever is causing this decline is happening during the juvenile phase of their lives. So the RSPB have hatched a plan. By fitting urban starlings with miniaturized radio tags, we can see them there, they're able to follow these starlings wherever after they fledged. So far, 21 birds have been tagged since the 24th of May, but of course starlings will travel far and wide, and so extra volunteers are needed with portable trackers to figure out where these starlings are going. Now, once I heard that, of course, I couldn't resist. I had to get my hands on that piece of tech, so I joined Vivian Hartwell from the RSPB as one of her latest recruits.
All right, so what's the plan, Vivian?
So I've got an aerial that is on the top of the car, and then it is attached to a receiver box. So it's just cycling through frequencies, searching for them, and then when it picks one up, it will start beeping. Oh. That's
Yes!
the signal.
All right, let's go find these starlings.
Yep.
So yeah, that was Vivian and I were out and about in Bristol. But just detecting where these tags are, or that they're beeping, isn't enough. The volunteers need to actually try and find the starlings and observe them, find out what their condition is and if they're even alive. So as soon as we got that first ping, we got out of the car, took our portable tracker and set off in hot pursuit. On the face of it, it sounds like a really simple task. Use a tracking device to find the tagged starlings, but there's so much hustle and bustle going on here. I can barely hear the beeping on the tracker.
Each bird has their own individual frequency to their radio tag. So this one is 932, and no other bird has that frequency.
What about that way? I think it's definitely coming from that direction, which I reckon like maybe 5 houses down, and then let's start knocking on some doors. That's really strong. Now this is the tricky part, trying to actually spot them. Oh yeah, up there. Yeah. Just on the chimneys. What's the verdict?
Yeah, I think it's one of those. The signal's really strong from over there.
Well, you heard it. Vivian's verdict is victory. A bit of fun detective work there, trying to find bird 932. As you saw, we actually ended up in someone's garden. That was Brian from Bristol. Thank you so much for being so accommodating and welcoming to the crew and I. But what did we find? Well, this study is still in its early days, brand new science. But Vivian has had signals from 9 birds. One, unfortunately, was found dead. Cause is still unknown. But they are traveling a distance of up to 3.5 kilometers. Now, that's making it really tricky for the volunteers. Imagine have to travel all around Bristol to try and find out where each of those starlings are going. Of course, we're still unsure about the causes. What's causing their decline? It could be a number of different factors: pathogenic, lack of food, increased predation. But with any luck, this cutting-edge starling science will hopefully eventually reveal what's happening to one of our most charismatic birds.
They really are stunning birds, aren't they? And do you know what, Chris? I think one of my most memorable experiences on the watches was seeing one of the starling murmurations with you a couple of years ago on Autumn Watch in Arn.
That's right.
I mean, it was really
beautiful
glorious.
Sunset, hot chocolate, poodles and starlings. It was brilliant, wasn't it? Absolutely brilliant.
It was beautiful. So some beautiful starlings to a beautiful nest, and it's one of my favourite. It's in Wales, and it's our long-eared owls. Let's catch up with them. You can see they've really grown, these 3 chicks. They're 17, 19 and 21 days old. They're really stretching their wings. You can see their feathers coming through, and they're getting a lot of confidence. They're exploring, they're climbing. Basically, they're doing pretty well. Still being fed by mum. Look at the size difference there, and look at the difference in the eyes. The one at the back, the biggest one, eyes are already yellow, and the one in the front has still got very dark eyes. But as I say, they're doing well because generally 60% of them are successful in fledging. And I think all 3 of ours, although there is a big size difference, are looking healthy, and I think it's looking quite positive for them.
It certainly is, yeah. We've been lucky enough not only to see the nest, but also to see the adult birds hunting out over the adjacent moor. Not the only things that we've seen out there. Been foxes out there, probably in competition for the same small mammals, but then a closer competitor might be this. This was a barn owl that we saw out there. So they're both hunting in the same place for the same food, but they're nesting in different places. But look, highlight, nightjar. This extraordinary bird is out catching moths. If you watch really carefully, you can see the moths. Look at this one. Oh, just got that. We used to think that they flew around with their mouths open, just trawling, but as you can see, they're very adept at seeing the moth and then rapidly changing. Now we also saw this, look, fanned tail, very odd wing beat. This is undoubtedly a male nightjar displaying. It's not a full-on display, I have to say, but it's certainly perhaps reacting to some of the churring sound that these birds produce at some times. It's an amazing noise. Just listen, this is nightjar. Can you hear that clicking there? That was actually wing clapping. So the male birds, when they're doing a proper display to attract the females, actually close their wings on each other above their back and make that clapping, that clicking sound. It's quite extraordinary.
It is. I actually love those birds, and I love the clicking sound, and it reminds me of an African language called Xhosa, and they have 3 different clicks. So it goes Ndi Kwanda Ukuteta Isi Xhosa Kanini.
What?
I know, that means, do you want to know what that means?
My nightjar's made of butter. I mean, what does
No,
it
it
mean?
means I know how to speak a little bit of Causa, but it's a clicky language, so it
Clicky
reminds me
language.
of the nightjar.
Excellent,
I love
excellent stuff. Love that sort of abstract knowledge chucked in.
Do you like a bit of that?
Top work, top work. We've also seen some nightjars this year, not where you normally expect to find them, out on the heaths, but in people's gardens. We had this one sent in. Look, it turned up on a wall. Someone got up in the morning and found this on the wall. Of course, they are migrants. They migrate back from sub-Saharan Africa after spending the winter there. So this one might have been drawn in by the lights of the town or the city and probably moved on shortly afterwards. But look at this. We've got another fantastic graph here. This shows the presence of nightjars in the UK. It comes from the BTO's, British Trust for Ornithology, that is bird tracking data. So the red line here is the average over the last few years. But look, the blue line is this year. So what this indicates is that unlike so many of the other birds we've been talking about, the nightjar appears to have arrived earlier, slightly earlier, and at the moment, as you can see, the numbers are slightly up. So we've been reporting anecdotally at this stage, not as many swifts, not as many swallows, all of these sub-Saharan migrants not in great numbers and arriving late, but the nightjar appears to be bucking the trend at the moment.
So get out in the evening and go and look for nightjars. They're fabulous animals. Right, let's return to our eider family, and those freshly hatched ducklings will be on the move. But for the first few days of a fluffy duckling, life can be rather treacherous.
Late spring on the Isle of May. Our 4 fluffy eider ducklings are just a few hours old. But it's already time to embark on their perilous journey to the coast. Their first stop is a freshwater pool. After a month on the nest, it's the female's first chance to eat. And for the ducklings, their first chance to get their feet wet. It's a welcome break, but they can't linger for long. Gulls shadow their every move. The paths built to serve the old lighthouse provide a highway to the sea. But they are also exposed. The female senses danger and deviates from the path, right into gull territory. A devastating blow for the eider, but the gull has a family to feed too. Luckily, help is at hand. Other females are making this perilous journey too, and a mobile creche gives strength in numbers. Just in time. Finally, the cavalry arrives. The males come to help escort them down the dangerous final stretch. At last, the sea is in sight. These tiny ducklings have come a long way. But this is the most dangerous part of all. A hesitant chick distracts the adults, and a gull swoops to take advantage. Of course, it's another loss, but the eider's group mentality means that 50% of our female's chicks have made it to this point, which is a success in itself. The creche comes together once more, and finally, they set out for the open ocean. This will now be their home, out here amongst the guillemots and razorbills. There's still a long way to go for the remaining chicks, but the worst of the journey is over. And these ducklings can now start to learn what it means to be Britain's largest sea duck.
I'll tell you, the more you see of the challenges that those little ducklings and our chicks face as they try and grow up, the more you respect any animal, in fact, that gets to adulthood. It's a really
losses
harsh
with Ida
world,
are colossal,
isn't it?
aren't they?
But I think a lot of us, when we think of eider ducks, think of eider down. Well, people of a certain age anyway, because when we were young, they used to have eider downs that they put on your bed. It was before duvets. Do you remember that? I'm not sure they were filled with eider down, but that's what they were called anyway. But let's have a look at eider down, because this is what the female duck sheds into the nest, and it is incredibly soft, really warm, very insulating. And in fact, I mean, it's collected out of wild nests now. It's harvested out of wild nests. And do you know, have a guess how much an eider duvet now costs, a giant duvet?
An eider duvet?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
£1,000. They call it an investment duvet. So,
An investment
duvet. I mean, actually, it's 10,000. I got it wrong. £10,000. That's a double investment duvet. So just this little bit, just this little bit in my hand was worth quite a lot of money. So I think I might pocket that actually.
I'll keep your pocket warm. So how does it work? How does this down actually retain so much heat? Well, firstly, it's three-dimensional. It's not like a feather, which is two-dimensional. So here we've got a typical duck feather, and here we've got eider down, and you can see it's so much more dense there, and this density traps the air. How does it trap the air? Well, let's look at it under a microscope. What we see is that it's made out of lots of barbs. That's the central vein that you can see there. Radiating off of that are the barbules, and on those there are lots of little hooks. And these are very, very dense, and they snag and enmesh with one another, and it's that which allows it to form a three-dimensional globe that traps the air and keeps them so warm. It's that effective.
Oh, I'd love one of those duvets, wouldn't you? But listen, if you think that male eider duck is pretty fancy, just take a look at this, because this picture is of a king eider, a male king eider, and one of these was spotted at Ethan Estuary in Aberdeenshire on the 7th of June. They normally breed in the Arctic, so very, very unusual to get them here.
That's a bird.
I tell you, anyone that hasn't been to Aberdeenshire from the 7th of June will be heading on their way. We all ought to go. Get in the car now and go and see it. Lucy, I'm afraid we've got to say goodbye to you now. Obviously, it's our last show tomorrow, but you're leaving us tonight. It's been great to have you along. We thoroughly enjoyed you being here.
Thank you so much. I've absolutely loved investigating Sherborne's toads and bats and water voles. But the highlight, of course, has been my induction to the Tree Slug Appreciation Society. I will never take this badge off, Chris.
We're proud of you, Lucy. We're proud of you. Lucy's leaving us, but Gillian will be joining us. She's heading back to Sherborne.
Well, you said that. She looks like she's lost her car keys, to be quite honest with you. I'm going to be out tomorrow following one of the fastest birds in level flight. It's the swift, of course.
And I get a privileged view of one of our rarest mammals.
But don't go anywhere, because there's Facebook Live coming up immediately after the end of the programme, 1:30 tomorrow, Maddie Mo, and we'll be back at 8 o'clock for our final show. See you on Facebook.